really sort of just pass on how they've gotten to where they are right now and what they're doing. Tolu, and I'm just going to go down and say their names, but they're also going to introduce themselves. But this is Tolu Ajao, Iman Abdul, Sufyan Hamid, Youssef Abdel Rahim, Denise Lee, and Brianna Taylor. So if we can just give a little for them being here today. Awesome. And I'm really going to dive right into it because I want you to hear from them. So I just sort of gave you their names, but if you guys can go down to the panel and state your name, grade, sort of where you're from, and the organization you represent. And then on top of sort of introducing yourself, if you could just state what you hope to gain from the experience today, or what you hope the audience gains from this experience today as well. You don't have to go in order. Does anyone want to go first?
Okay, I'll start. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Brianna Taylor. I'm 16 years old. I'm from Freeport, but I go to school at Friends Academy, and I guess the organization I represent is Diversity at Friends Academy. I'm a leader of the Diversity Committee, and what I hope you all gain out of this day, this program, is basically looking outside of your own school communities. A common theme in my group was that we all shared things that people in our other groups didn't have any idea about. So if you are attending a school that's predominantly one race or predominantly or diverse, be able to look outside of that and see how you can help Long Island as a whole become what your community is or what your community isn't.
Hi everyone, my name is Denise and I'm a junior at Friends Academy. I'm from Manhasset. So what I hope that the audience gains today is maybe some kind of inspiration to make a change in their community. It can be really small. It can be educating one friend about a fact that you learned today, but change starts slowly. So starting slowly is something that I think is very important. And so I'm part of TASK at school, which my school is Quaker, so it stands for Teachers and Students for Quaker Understanding and Education. And the Quaker values, which are simplicity, peace, integrity, community, equality, and service, they all kind of tie into the idea of racial equity. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking with all of you today.
What's up, guys? My name is Yusuf. I'm a youth advocate in Teen Take Charge and Integrate NYC, both youth-led organizations that focus on educational equity. I'm also part of Fair Play Coalition, which also focuses on sports equity in schools. I'm a senior from New York City, and something that I would like to gain as much as you guys would is just like sharing our experiences as student activists in your community. So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
What's up, guys? My name is Sophie. I'm a racism alumni, I guess now. So they kicked me out. So I live in Brooklyn now. I'm a freshman in college. I work with Youssef and Iman, director of community outreach at Integrate NYC. Something I hope to gain is that I hope that leaving here today, like I know that there's advocates out there working towards equity in the place that I grew up in, Long Island. Oh, I go to Kingsborough Community College now.
No.
I went to Elmo Memorial High School in the Sewanee Central High School District.
Hello. Hi guys, my name is Iman. I am a junior at the City College of New York in Harlem, so I'm in my third year. I'm a double major in sociology and childhood education, minoring in Latino and Latin American studies. I am the director of education and engagement at Integrate NYC, so I work with Sufi and Youssef. And what do I hope to get? Well, pretty much everything that you guys said, that's what I want to get out. But I also want to hopefully spark some sort of like something inside you to get you really like thinking about how you as young people can actually like be transformative and hopefully like empower you guys or for you guys to realize like that you guys are so strong as young people and that your voices are important. So that's what I hope you gain.
Tolu Adele, and I'm a junior at Sayasa High School, and I volunteered with Erase Racism over the summer. And I would like the audience to know that you can be an activist for social justice no matter what your age is.
Awesome, thank you. That's a great transition too. You kind of talked about that spark, and I'd like to, for everyone, to elaborate a little bit more on just what you believe started your journey as an advocate, and what sparked your particular interest in what you advocate for and what those causes are.
What I believe started my journey as an advocate was my self-identity. So I identify as bicultural. My mother is from Puerto Rico, and she immigrated to this country at 18. My father is from Lebanon in the Middle East. He immigrated to this country at 18. Both parents coming to seek the American dream. And I think being a product of that and identifying with two totally different cultures and two totally different religions, it was really hard for me in the public school system to really find myself and kind of see where I belong. Because in school, we're often placed in boxes. In society, we're placed in boxes. So I think really trying to find where do I fit in, that was what got me into activism. So when I was in high school, I went to a predominantly white high school in Brooklyn, and not looking like many of the students in my school or even many of the teachers in my school, I felt underrepresented. I didn't feel respected. We had students in my school, this was during the Trump election in 2016, and we would have students in my school run down the hallway screaming white supremacy. And we would have students wearing their MAGA hats and using the N-word towards our black peers just in order for them to fit in or because they think it's cool. And we, us as people of color in our school, we felt disrespected and we didn't feel represented. So I didn't have my first Latina teacher until the 10th grade in New York City. And to have representation in a classroom really shifted how I saw myself in the world. So once I had that teacher, then I started thinking about all of the things I went through, and I got involved in the issue of school segregation, and I realized that I'm a product of that. So then I started digging into the issue of public school segregation, and for years now, I'm here working with Integrate NYC. So that's kind of what sparked me to get involved in the work I was doing now.
So last week at our meeting, I was talking to our executive director about how the week before that, on the other conference in Suffolk County, she got so many applauses, so I kind of don't feel special compared to you right now. But I would have to say what sparked it, or what my exposure was this conference last year for me. It's because I was still in Long Island, I lived in Valley Stream, went to Elmore High School, and I never really thought of injustice and inequity in Long Island. So this conference within itself, Erase Racism, is what exposed me to it. But my action, what sparked my action would have to be the fact that what you mentioned about having a teacher that looked like you. I've never had a teacher who's been from where I'm from. Which is my entire life, from kindergarten, from pre-K till senior year in high school. I still haven't even had one in college, which is crazy. I have yet to have a teacher who looks like me or is even from the same country as me. So I don't feel represented in my community or in my school in general. So just taking an action towards teacher representation and the lack of was my action, or what sparked my action.
What sparked my action, or my advocacy rather, was the fact that I just wanted to be a leader. I wanted to be the President of the United States, right? And that was just one of the dreams. I was like, you know what, I'll be the 50th President of the United States. So when I was a freshman, I was just looking for opportunities. I joined the student government. And then within student government, there are BSACs. So representing your schools in the borough and so there's students from every school that comes together that fix issues in their schools. From there, I was elected to the Chancellor Student Advisory Council, where we spoke about scanning in schools, security, safety, LGBTQ, respect for all, things of that nature. I was then nominated to be to hold a seat in the Student Advisory group that the mayor created. And then from there, worked with Integrate NYC and Teen Take Charge. One of the things, there wasn't a certain time that specifically sparked the advocacy work, but when being part of all these councils and organizations, it didn't come to mind that these things were actually happening. For example, as Sufi said, representation in schools. It didn't come to my mind that, there wasn't teachers that looked like me. There wasn't teachers that came from the same culture. So how can I really relate to them? And then it was just a mixture of that, and I became more interested. So yeah, being exposed into organizations that empower me to speak up for my community and my experiences.
So what led me to become an advocate was over the summer, I also worked with Erase Racism, and I watched this documentary called Race, the Power of an Illusion, and it talked about how race was really a social construct built by the culmination of different rules by the American government and determined by a few select amount of elite people. And I was really interested by how the decisions of a few elites constituted my entire life, essentially. And that's something that I wanted to make other people aware of, and I wanted to make other people understand that their identity is not necessarily something that can be constituted by someone else. You're not just someone else said the thing about boxes and society putting people in boxes, and it's important to know that you are not part of a box in a label, and I think that's something that I want to advocate for, and that's really what sparked my interest.
What sparked my interest in becoming an advocate contends to pretty much the entire structure of my life. And when I was younger, I was the only black girl in my entire grade from first grade to seventh grade. I was the only student of color actually in my entire grade. So throughout those 7 years, you go through multiple Black History Months, multiple, topics of conversation where you feel like you're supposed to be that person to give the answer on the Black experience. And moving on from that school going into Friends Academy, I felt another pull of me having to be that answer to the questions of, why is cultural appropriation wrong? Why is touching your hair wrong? Questions like that. And being that those issues directly affected me and the people that I loved the most, I felt like I had the opportunity to use the knowledge that was given to me both by my parents and by other members of my community, and to use that to charge that into a voice that I can put into my community and put into a way where I can change my community around me. So between that and March for Our Lives and Erase Racism, I've been able to have the resources and the tools to really share what's been going on in multiple different communities, both in the public sector and the private sector of education. So that's what sparked mine.
What sparked my advocacy was that I started watching the global news and reading newspapers and learning about national issues going on, and I realized that things life isn't just Long Island. It's more about what's going on around the world, and I realized that things where I live, it just seems everything is just kind of perfect. Everything that's what life is, but truly it's just my school doesn't accurately represent what's actually going on in the world, and I realized that I need to speak up about it, because if I don't speak up, who is?
You're talking about, speaking up, and you talked also about being singled out, sort of as the person that has to speak, about the Black experience because you're the only one. And I oftentimes hear these concerns that you're considered if you speak up often, that you're like that girl. Like you're pointed out as like that guy or like that girl in the classroom, in your community, and just always bringing up issues of inequity or issues of just within your history classes, something that's missing within your history classes or your history textbooks. So my question to you guys is for those people who are often, called in for you, that girl or that guy, what advice do you have for them to continue feeling comfortable with raising their voices in different spaces where their opinion about sort of these inequities might not be welcome, or they don't feel that it's welcome?
So I am that girl. I am that student that's always in the classes that is bringing up the issue of inequity or some sort of injustice that's going on. And what I would have to say to students in the room as well is, be that person too. Don't let it just be that one or two kids that's always talking. Like, you guys have a voice as well, and you have as much power as those students that are talking. Educate yourself. Do your research, know about what's going on in the world, follow up with news and current events. And because most of these issues are about social issues. If you know what's going on, you would have something to say. And there was a quote that I said to a group that I was with earlier, and I'm just gonna say it for you guys again. That's kind of gonna tie this. And it says, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. I'm going to say it once more. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. And I want you guys to really take that in and let that empower you to actually go and look at what's going on in the world, what social issues are impacting you, your family, your communities, your city, so that you can be that person in the class to also advocate and to also use your voice and stand up for whatever you believe in.
Yeah, go ahead. So I guess I'm not usually that guy or that girl. I'm usually the one supporting that person. But more recently I've become that person because, I don't know, I feel like in college there is a lack of conversation within the classroom. So recently I walked into an English class, my class started after that, and on the board it says that there's something about the DOE, and I'm walking like, these guys have totally misconstrued what the Department of Education has done towards minority students, and I brought it up, and now I'm giving a presentation in that class next week, which is kind of weird. But regardless, I feel like once you find your love or your passion for something, there is no deterrence that can step in front of it. Like, that has been prevalent in every situation where I've fought against for something I love and anything I care about. It's the fact that I love it and I'm so passionate about it that whenever someone says something, it doesn't faze me. Like, haters are gonna hate till you're successful. Honestly, like, everyone who hates on you is gonna hate on you until you're like up there, and then they're like, yo, what's up? Like, you trying to chill? I'm like, nah, like, relax. Step away from me. Like, I don't know, where were you at when I was lacking in the classroom and no one wanted to say anything? Like, no one wanted to be on my side, no one wanted to support me. Where were you? Like, when I was being put down, when I was being oppressed, exactly. Like, they literally took the side of the oppressor in that sense. So, feeling alone, it's okay. Like, honestly, I don't mind. Like, all right, deuces, like, yo, I'm gonna do me, like, and I'm gonna love what I love, be passionate for what I'm passionate about. Because at the end of the day, like, it's all about you and fighting for the things that you care about.
I'm just gonna echo what Sufi and Iman said. Just educate yourself about, the things that you're passionate about. And then once you educate yourself and, you're given that opportunity to speak about it, you're gonna feel like a boss. Like, you own this. Like, I know about this and you're not gonna tell me otherwise. Why? Because I'm educated about that thing or that subject that you're talking about. So definitely, like, educate yourself, know what's going on, just continue doing you.
My advice for the person who doesn't, who may be nervous to speak up in class or nervous to correct a teacher when they whitewash something in a history class is that what I like to think about is my parents did not come from Korea 14 hours away just for me to learn about history in a whitewashed environment. And I would encourage you to take that to your classrooms too if you feel nervous about being that person. Also, just know that there could be just, even if it's one person who values what you say, maybe they don't even say it in that instance because they're too nervous to, that could be life-changing for somebody. So just always think about that and just continue to make change in your classroom.
So the first thing I'll say about speaking up, especially in history or humanities classes, and specifically American history, if issues of inequity and injustice are the foundation of our country, we have to be the people to bring up and address it, because our country hasn't. So if we in a classroom are able to do what the leaders of our country can't, that makes our voices more powerful. If we're able to address the issues that the leaders of our country refuse to. So for advice, I would say to all of you is that the conversation is worth being brought up. You're not taking anything out of the conversation. If anything, you're adding truth and accountability into the topic of conversation. And that you don't have to be a member of the community, at large or at topic to be able to say something about it. You don't have to be, black to talk about the civil rights movement, or you don't have to be a woman to talk about the women's suffrage movement. Or you don't have to be a member of the LGBTQ community to talk about the issues that they're facing in history right now. So it just takes the courage of your voice and the knowledge of your truth to be able to insert yourself into a conversation where it's needed.
My advice for the person that is like that guy or that girl is that it's so important for you to keep talking, because you need to break the stigma of talking about uncomfortable situations and issues. Because if we don't talk about these uncomfortable issues, we'll never solve them. So if you need to keep talking about it, because you need to spread awareness for it.
Awesome, thank you. And I think you elaborate a little bit more just on the idea of speaking up and having comfortable spaces for uncomfortable conversations. But more so, both Long Island and New York City suffer from extreme school segregation. Today, we learned that Long Island is home to 11 intensely segregated districts, which means that 90 to 100% of the population in those districts is non-white. Why has the topic of combating segregation been important to you? And why do you think it matters? We talk about the facts, we talk about the history, but why should it matter to this audience in particular?
I think combating segregation on Long Island is a really important issue because, for me, education is so important for me because my entire life has been my education and I really value it. And the segregation on Long Island really matters because kids and students who are in the Long Island schools aren't accurately being represented, what's actually going on in the world. So when they decide to go out in the world and go out and get a job, it's like a culture shock to them. They have no idea how to deal with these new cultures and ethnicities, and they end up feeling this cycle of hatred, and just when they don't know something, they just reject it and they're scared of it.
I'm definitely going to speak about this, but do you think I don't think we should clap after every answer now?
Yeah, you don't have to clap.
Yeah, you guys don't have to clap, don't worry. If you support an idea, a lot of things we do is, I snap, you can snap quietly just so you don't disrupt the conversation. But regarding this issue of segregation, a coach of mine at Integrate NYC said that, he mentioned youth are facing the issue, so it is the responsibility of youth to solve the issue alongside adult allies. Because with the support of adult allies, such as, yourself or mentors, whatever it is, we have to solve the issue for the future generations. Because we leave the education system after 12th grade or after college, we don't really face the injustices anymore. After that, we go into our careers, and eventually we buy houses, whatever it is, you buy a house or a home, and then your son or your child, whatever, your son or daughter, grows up in that education system again. So why would you leave that system knowing it's broken just to have your own child be in the same system? And the fact of the matter is, like, it's not getting better, so that means it's getting worse. So growing up in a segregated society, would you rather have your children grow up in the same society, knowing that you can take the burden or whatever it is and fight for it while you're here? So that was just like my whole thing on why it mattered to me. Is just that I don't want the future generation that comes through this, whether it is I have children or not, to have to face this issue when I know I can combat it myself.
I feel the love for myself. Diversity and integrating schools has been proven to increase learning in a school environment. So when you have students from all around the world in the same place, it helps learning. You know, you're learning from their culture, from their experiences. So not everything is in the books. And when you have a diverse school community, it definitely improves your learning. So why not improve it? You know, it's for our own good.
Yeah, to kind of go off of what was just said, racism isn't really something that anyone is born with. It's something that's taught in your daily interactions. Like, if you only interact with people of one race, you only gain the experiences of one type of culture and one type of mindset, which leads to resistance to another type of mindset later on in life, which is why integrated schools are so important. It's so important to expose yourself to as many cultures as possible to gain a better experience in a global world, because we have, through technology, we have such a global world and global economy that it's so important to know of as many cultures as possible in order to really live in this world.
Yeah, definitely going off of what Denise said, I was reading an article about the French school system and how most French students are multilingual, which is why they succeed, often in France. And I was thinking about my school and the American education system and how most of us struggle to get through all of English, let alone another language. And that's just one barrier of, the one narrative education system that we have. So definitely being exposed, it's been proven, like Yusuf said, all over the world, it's been proven that being exposed to different people and different cultures and different narratives improves the overall learning experience and your own personal learning experience. So I feel like, also going off of what was said, if I know that I can stop the problem with me, why would I sit back and let it go on to another generation?
Y'all know you got mic.
I really like what you said, Denise, about how the same mindset leads to resistance towards different mindsets in the future. And I just wanted to provide an example of that. So let's say I'm gonna have a problem solved, a problem to be solved, right, in a classroom. And I have this table and this table. And I put 5 kids of one race or ethnicity in this table to solve the problem. And then I take this table and I put 5 different kids of 5 different religions, 5 different races and backgrounds to solve this problem. Which do you guys think would be able to solve the problem the fastest and the most efficient?
The one with the differences.
The diverse one, yes. Why? Can you tell me why do you think so? In a sentence?
Because they bring something different to the table that helps come up with
That helps come up with
the best possible answer.
the best possible answer. And that's because all of these students have so much to offer to the table, because they have come through all different walks of life. They have come from so many different experiences, and they're able to contribute that and connect to each other. And that's why their answer would be the most efficient, because they brought everything that they came with. Compared to the kids that are all from one specific race or ethnicity, when they've all come through very similar walks of life, when they all come from really similar cultures, so they have that same mindset. So yeah, I just wanted to provide that example, and that's something that I totally agree with, and that's why segregation is a problem, because it's just an increase on racism, right? And Brown versus Board of Ed, you guys know what Brown versus Board of Ed is? Yeah. Cool. So Brown versus Board of Ed happened 64 years ago. Like, how is it 2018 and we're still dealing with the same problem but worse? And as diverse as New York City is, where we literally have everybody from almost every single country on the planet, we have the most intensely segregated school system in the country, with the largest school system in the country, public education system. So it's really like mind-blowing, and it's something that like definitely, like Sufi said, youth are affected by it, so youth have to take initiative to the action.
Thank you. And then I just have one last question, then we're gonna open up questions for you guys. So if you can like keep it to like a minute, just so we have enough time for them to ask questions too. They're later on going to be, after this, sort of working to create their own action plans. And so what advice do you have for them, or what actions are you either currently taking, or what advice do you have for them to turn their words into action? 1 to 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
My advice would be that I've always learned that people can start alone, but people can't grow alone. So grab your friends, grab, your cousins, your, cheer team, or, whatever, and grab a group of people that can help you build your goal. Because if they're your true friends, they're gonna help you with the goal that you want and what you're trying to see be put forth. So grab a group of your friends and put a PowerPoint together to bring to your administration if it's something in your school community. Say, you know what, we're seeing this, and this is our school, this is my education, this has to stop. So make it a community issue, and you can start alone, but don't grow alone. That's my advice.
My advice would be to use the internet. There are tons of resources out there, and start by educating yourself, and then start by educating your friends. Just tell one friend, and it'll kind of spread like fire, like an effect or something of some sort. Either start a movement, start a club. Just take any kind of action that you can. If you don't know where to start, just start by educating yourself.
I would say be authentic. That's one of the main values that I circled, because, like, for example, in this setting, I applaud you guys for having this real conversations about segregation in schools and diversity in schools, because it's a real issue. So I definitely applaud you for that. But yeah, start with your school. Maybe host an assembly at your school, discussing the percentages of the student body, for example. Take your friends and go to an integrate meeting. Clap me. But yeah, just start in your schools. That's just something small. So youth activists partner up with student government, for example. So just do anything just in your schools and then branch out.
I think what you were trying to say was the snowball effect. Yeah, a little bit on the icy side. So it's honestly, like you said, just starting and being authentic. I feel like you should just have be a real one, because we're recognized real. So starting that snowball effect, like as you love something or grow passion for something, people will support you naturally. People will gravitate towards your energy that's positive. Of course, like you see positive energy between cliques that are just vibing with each other. Like it's prevalent in high school. Like you see it everywhere. And then advice for you personally, I would just have to say that, like, remind yourself that it's okay to escape reality sometimes. Like that was like my biggest thing growing up. Like throughout all the issues I faced, it was just like, I mean, when I was in middle school, it was called no shade, right? But after that, it was just like, whether it was music or sports, whatever it was, that reminding myself that it's okay to escape from the problems I face and then go back and go harder. Just grind, right? It's okay to leave whatever you have, take a step back, escape, go into your mind, right? Peace out a little bit, and then come back and just grind out and just work harder at it. So that's my advice, especially for young people, because you deal with, being misunderstood by adults, being misunderstood by family, your peers, whatever it is. Like, it's okay to just be yourself for a while and be alone, and then come back and go harder at it.
Just one thing, I would assume you guys are from different schools in Long Island. So take this opportunity to really network and maybe organize something in Long Island. You know, you guys are powerful. The fact that you're here just shows how powerful you guys are. Oh yeah, for sure.
Erase Racism has a student task force that I encourage all of you guys to join. We meet like once a month-ish, and so if you want to take action but don't really know how, this is somewhere that you can start.
To kind of, what I was going to say was Suki kind of said it, but didn't really say it, is something that I would advise you guys is to develop self-love before anything. Whether it's activism, whether it's being just a leader in your school, or even dancing or singing, whatever it is that you guys are into, before you start it, enter it with self-love. Really come to yourself, because life gets hard. The older you get, the harder it gets. The more problems are going to be in your life. Activists are seen as crazy people because we just know too much about all of the injustices going in the world. And the more you educate yourself about things that are going on, the more crazy like you can become. And it's like so serious that like sometimes you can have breakdowns. And I'm gonna keep it real. I've had breakdowns. I haven't experienced my first like mental breakdown until college, and that was like a really heightening time of my activism. So I really think coming to yourself first and loving yourself and entering anything with you 100%, not 50%, not 60%, 100%. Coming in with that is so important, because it will just empower you to continue striving. And when things knock you down, because you love yourself, you are able to get back on your feet and to provide love to whatever you're doing. So I just really wanted to say, self-love is the key to like happiness and to definite success and whatever it may be.
A place to start is to just start talking to anyone, to the school board, so they can change inequitable policies, to your friends so they can be educated, to your teachers so they can also be educated, and just your parents and anyone who's willing to listen, and even people who are not willing to listen. You should still talk, because it's an important, activism is really important, and it's just something that is always going to be there, and these issues are always going to be there, so we just need to talk about it.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to open it up for audience questions. Yeah, I saw one hand like shoot up, and then I see one right there too. Go ahead.
You already established that taking a neutral approach, is basically supporting the side of the oppressor. So, do you believe that a passive approach to fixing problems is complacency?
I definitely don't think that a passive approach is complacency to the issue. I think that passive approach is sometimes the best option. Like, honestly, you can't always like go up in someone's face and start a fight. Like, that's not what we're trying to do. Like, I'm not trying to fight anyone. Like, I'm just trying to open the space for conversation, and that's passive within itself. Being passive isn't a bad thing to do. Naturally, people have passive personalities. Like, one thing that I was thinking about was like, this is an attack on Caucasian people. Like, you guys realize that what we're arguing for is not that. We're trying to beat the system that has put minorities down. That's the whole issue that I'm dealing with personally, is that I feel like that my identity hasn't been respected. So opening that conversation is what I'm trying to do personally, and that's passive within itself. Anyone else?
First off, I think this is incredible. Like, you guys are incredible. I think this is like such an awesome thing. You talked earlier about like just like the news getting in your head and like having breakdowns. You know, I had to stop, reading the news. I just couldn't do it anymore. It just gets so overwhelming. How do you guys balance it? Because I want to make all the difference that I can. I'm sure everybody else in here thinks so as well. How do you balance that with mental health?
So definitely I relate with you a lot on that. I remember there was a period in time where I would scroll on Instagram and I would just see like justice for insert name here for like people who had been murdered or a shooting had happened and just constantly was just like, oh my God, like things are just happening all the time. And it gets to be a lot, especially if in school you feel like you don't have that outlet to be like, oh my God, like this is happening, and it could be me or it could be someone I love. So I would say definitely find an outlet or someone you can. I know I always have a friend, every time something happens, I'm texting her, I'm like, girl, something just happened, and we need to talk about it, or else I'm gonna like you're gonna feel like that overwhelming sense of like, what can I do to like stop all of this, especially after like, what happened in Florida. That was a big surge of what can I do in me. So I feel like first finding that outlet to express however you're feeling, and then taking that rage and turning it into action.
Something that I did for my personal mental health was I unfollowed every single political Instagram account that I was following. I was following so many of them that it was just so depressing, like every day. So I just, and also, like, I don't necessarily know that like what they're saying is like true, so I just unfollowed all of them, and I would stick to trustworthy news sources. And if it's getting too much for you, then I would prioritize yourself, because as it was said before, you can't really make wholehearted change if you aren't in it with yourself. And I think that's like the #1 priority. And also, if it's very overwhelming, just start with small changes in your life. Nothing. You don't need to start an entire movement with the whole world. It can just be correcting. If someone says something that's incorrect, you could just correct them nicely, and you don't have to take a huge mental toll on yourself to make change. Yeah.
So how do you positively address issues of injustice in the classroom environment?
Can you stand up?
Yeah, she also said, how do you positively address injustices that happen within the classroom? Positively.
I'm not gonna lie, there's going to be discomfort. It's never going to be a situation where you address injustice and everyone's smiling and like BFFs with each other. There's going to be tension in the room. There's going to be people turning their heads, making faces, whispering amongst each other. I think if you really know about the injustice that you're going to speak up about, having that confidence, and just delivering it respectfully. I think delivering facts, always having facts to back you up rather than just personal opinion, is definitely something that would keep you hanging in there and would have people like, okay, like she can't be lying, like she has all these statistics and facts and experiences that make her credible to what she's saying or to the issue that she's bringing up. So I think just really like knowing your stuff and addressing it respectfully, I say respectfully, but also in a way to bring that discomfort. Because you don't want to be too respectful that everybody's just neutral in the situation. You really need to establish that discomfort so that there can be conversation, so that there can be debate, or like opposition is a good thing. If everybody's always on the same side, then like, I don't know, then you're not creating that discomfort. I think just really creating that discomfort and backing it up is how you could positively bring it in a classroom setting.
Again, I just want to say thank you for doing all this. I don't know, it's really cool to see how much advocacy and support is going on with all you guys. But my question is, do you think there really is a final and permanent solution, or if there's any way to achieve like completely erasing racism, even potentially within our lifetime?
Okay, so that's a deep question. It's a question I ask myself all the time too. It's like, am I ever going to see the day where like I don't, have to have the talk with my, black son, or have to worry about my, gay friend being, harassed out on the street? Like, are we ever going to see that point in time in my life? So, I think we can do so much as young people since it is our lifetime, and a lot of it is within our control, but a lot of it is getting the people who set up these social constructs in the first place to admit that it was wrong. Once we get that accountability where it's like, okay, as a country, we have dehumanized, we have marginalized, we have excluded a huge amount of the United States population and put them in a situation to feel less than. Once our country takes that accountability to say we messed up, then that's when we can move forward into a place where we can erase racism. I know in Germany, we were talking about how they take full responsibility for what happened during the Holocaust. A lot of Germans, they feel so much shame about being a part of a country that participated in such a horrible act like that. And then our country, we see the effects of slavery working in our lives every day, and we have yet to take the accountability to say, I'm sorry for what I've done to this large group of people. So I feel like once we take the point to take that accountability is when also, like, as youth, us doing our part, but our country and our government doing their part as well.
Do I think racism will be dismantled in this lifetime? I don't know. But can it be decreased? Most definitely. And like, if schools weren't segregated, that's already the first gateway. If we weren't going to segregated schools, then like, we would have diversity and we would have equity. And like, with equity, like, that's what like can help dismantle racism. And then that would go throughout generations, right? But I also think like we experience racism also through our government, right? And it's through history and forms of government that have like created this whole theme of oppression. And I think with like, so I also work with political campaigns. Have you guys heard of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Yes. Oh my God, so I love her too. She just won. She is now representing the Bronx and Queens in Congress. She is there in DC right now. She's 29 years old. For you guys that don't know her, she's a 29-year-old from the Bronx of Puerto Rican descent and a woman. And she is now in Congress in Washington, DC. She won last week. And yeah, so look, that's youth voice and that's youth power. And if we have representation, like that's how we can dismantle racism within our government, right? Because it all, at the end of the day, comes to our government and how our government functions. So getting young people of so many diverse backgrounds into government, we can literally shift like the way that this country runs. So I think like that's definitely a way that can help dismantle racism in this lifetime.
Yeah. And then we have time for one more after.
So this is more of a personal question. We go to Sewanaka High School, and we're one of the most diverse high schools in our district. But we kind of tend to be so diverse that we're kind of segregated. So I just wanted to know like what I could do or what we could do to like make a change.
That's so awesome that you said that. So that reminded me a lot of my high school, where in our lunchroom we do have a diverse group of people, but we would literally have white kids segregate themselves from other white kids. Like we had Italians in one section, Russian and Jewish in one section, we had like Caribbean blacks, African blacks, and then the Latino kids. It was literally like segregated amongst themselves. So at Integrate NYC, I'm gonna present you really, really quickly the 5 R's. So we have this 5R process, and we believe that with these 5 R's, you can achieve real integration in any school. So the first R is race and enrollment. There are race and enrollment policies that are in specific high schools, which can mean like there's a screening process where they randomly select you, or there's an exam you have to take, or there's a portfolio you have to give, or an interview. That's all. Like some kids don't have portfolios. Some kids aren't prepared for interviews because they were never given those opportunities or were never like been through those experiences growing up. Right, so race and enrollment processes, how does that look like? Second one, resource allocation. Is every single school receiving equitable resources, right? Does every single school have 2 sports teams or 40 sports teams? What does every school have AP classes? Or what's the lunch being served in the school? And how many students are free and reduced lunch, right? So that's also resource allocation. Then there is relationship across group identities. Building relationships with students that don't look like you. Having a culturally responsive curriculum implemented in the school system, that's a form of relationship. So if we're all taught about our cultures, that's how we will all understand each other, have some sort of respect for each other, and that's how you can like reduce segregation. The fourth one is restorative justice. Is it always the Black and Latino schools that have metal detectors and increased, in New York City, NYPD in their schools? Or is it a school that has restorative practices where young people don't want their peers to be suspended, so they rather hold conversations, or they rather do some form of like community engagement activity to help this kid stay in school and learn that what he's doing is wrong and not send him home for 10 days to do nothing, right, and not solve the problem. That's like ignoring the problem, and that goes into the school to prison pipeline. And then the fifth one would be representation. Representation, yes, that's the fifth one. Representation among teachers and staff in the building. Do you have teachers that look like you? Does your principal look like you? What are these staff doing in the school to make sure that you feel like your school is a sanctuary space? So if all of those R's are equitable, that can achieve integration. If you're lacking on one or more, that's a form of segregation. And you guys can find all of that on integratelyc.org if you want to learn how to segregate your school.
But regarding that question about how to, I went to Almont, but I also went to Swanwick because that was an automotive. So right, so my big issue with my clique or my friend group in high school was that it was like just 3 of us starting off. And my advice to you would be just break the clique. Like, for us, it was us 3, and then I was like, yo, like, what are we doing here, bro? Like, yeah, why are we just like, it's just us. Like, I want to go out. Like, I want to, like, you know, meet different people. Because in your walks of life, you will meet people who don't look anything like you, right? Completely different sides, like, different hemispheres of the world. Like, and you'll click with them like that. It's crazy, the types of conversations you'll have with people who don't even look like you. They can relate to you on a level that no one else has been able to relate to you on. Right, so I remember just like, there was another group, a friend group that was like, yo, these people are like, these cats is cool. Like, that's kind of an old term, but at least they're pretty cool. Like, and I was like, once I took that step outside of my own clique, and I started chilling with that. It's not like I left my crew, like, I didn't leave my friend group, like, I brought them with me. And now we have like this, we were all talking about it the other day, like, yo, we're so different, guys. Like, it was like 7 of us, and we're like, yo, we're so different. Like, when we're successful, no one's gonna think that we know each other. Because it's like, oh, you know him? Yo, weird. When did you guys meet? Because we're so different. And just, that's my thing, which is like, yo, break the clique, venture outside of what you're comfortable in and be uncomfortable. Because that discomfort, like, breeds creativity, breeds growth, and throughout your entire life, all you're gonna wanna do is grow. Develop as a person, and then you'll be like POTUS, like my friend over here. Like, you'll be president of the United States one day, right? Or like, you'll be famous, whatever it is you wanna achieve. Being uncomfortable, growing yourself as a person through different adventures is what's going to bring you there.
Last word.
I agree with Sufi. I think to integrate the school, you need to really integrate your friendships. Make an example for everyone. Show that having a diverse friend group is normal. That's not something that should be avoided. And when you start that example, people will realize that it's not something they should be afraid of, and maybe they'll start having diverse friend groups. And also start to talk about it with your administration. Try to create new policies to integrate students. Maybe have more diverse clubs and teams, and maybe have parents and teachers talk about it with their kids. Because you can't just put kids in a school and expect them to just be together and be friends. You need to really encourage it.
Absolutely, thank you guys. Similar to, yeah, you can give a round of applause now. Thank you guys so much. As they were speaking about the 5 R's, Denise also talked about our student task force. We get along with Integrate NYC and Teens Take Charge so well because we have very similar priorities. Race and enrollment, we don't really have specialized enrollment in Long Island, but we do focus on, for the Student Task Force, teacher administrative diversity, culturally responsive education, addressing school and community segregation, and in creating an inclusive school climate, which goes along with the positive relationships. So if those are of interest to you, we also have, like Denise said, that student task force that, Sufi also helps with consulting and being a liaison between task force and Integrate. He's got a lot of jobs now. But we are going to transition to our last event. As I said in one of their questions, you're going to be creating action plans. So what is going to happen is you are going to go back to your original spaces and your original groups, and you're going to have a discussion. Wait a second. I know I sound like a teacher, right? So you will be going back to your original spaces and original groups. Again, let's get a round of applause. They'll be here for a little bit, so if you have extra questions,